Hey guys, I have a very scary story to tell you about my mum and I when we were in London about 2 months ago. Okay, so we're staying in a really nice hotel. It's 5 stars, beautiful. Anyway, this one night we got home at like 12 a.m. and we got ready for bed, fell asleep, and then I got woken up by mum like nudging me and like whispering something to me, but I was asleep with like a sleep mask on, and I must have thought that it was morning because the lights were all on in the room, so I thought it was just daylight. So I took it off and I'm like looking at her and I'm like, what? Like, what do you want? And she's like, Maddie, someone's in our room. And I'm like looking at her. I don't know, I'm still whispering. I'm like looking at her and I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, I swear to God, I just saw someone walk into our bathroom. And I was like, what? And I look at the time and it's 3 a.m. and I'm like, what are you talking about? And we're both silent for like 5 seconds, and then we hear something in the bathroom, and so we jump out of bed and run to the front door, and we're standing by the front door, like we haven't closed the door yet because we don't have a key, and like we've just left everything inside, and it's like quite a big room as well, and the bathroom is right next to the bed, but the lights in the bathroom were off, but we were hearing noises. Anyway, I'm like looking at mum and like our hearts are like racing, and then we couldn't hear anything. Mum was like, maybe I'm hallucinating, or maybe like I dreamt it. And I'm just like, in my head I'm thinking, if this bitch has woke me up at 3 a.m. because she's literally dreaming, I'm literally gonna kill her. Anyway, we're still by the door, we're silent. Mum goes around the corner to like look where the bed and bathroom is. She can't see anything, but then she hears like a noise, and so she runs back out, and we're doing the exact same thing. We're standing there like we have no idea what's going on, but we keep hearing these sounds from the bathroom. So then after a little while, it's my turn to look, and I walk around the corner and I run back. I see something and I run back to mum and I go, Mum, there's a man in our bed. And she goes, are you effing serious? And I said, yep, there is a man in our bed. Like, he's in our bed, tucked in on your side. And mum's like, I'm gonna hold the door, you like run down to reception and get security. So I do. My pajamas are inside out, like I don't have any shoes on, my hair's like a mess, and I run down to reception. So I get to reception and I like tell them what's happened. I'm like, a man has come into our room and he's hopped in our bed, and they're like literally so frazzled and confused. Anyway, they come upstairs with me, they come in the door. Mum and I are like waiting out by the door, so we can't actually see what's happening, but we can hear everything that's happening. And we hear the security guards being like, sir, like trying to wake him up. So he was obviously asleep. Like, sir, like you're in the wrong room. Like, are you staying in this? Oh my God, I'm running out of time. I'm sorry, go to part 2.
Want to get creeped out? This is the story of someone who did the 11-mile drive ritual. My favorite paranormal podcast did an episode on paranormal games. One of these games was the 11-mile drive ritual. The motivation is a wish. You know, wish upon a star, wish comes true. But this game seemed a lot darker, like you're risking something. It scared me, but I thought maybe this is just a kid's game, meant to freak teenagers out, and something to laugh about later. I'm not so sure what this game is all about now that I've experienced it myself. To explain the feeling you get when you arrive at the 11-mile road, it doesn't feel like a game. It feels as if you're about to make a sacrifice. It feels like a ritual. Now, I'll explain mile by mile what I experienced on the 11-mile drive. Mile 1. It took me about 15 to 20 minutes of feeling absolutely nothing before all of a sudden I had this overwhelming feeling that I was there. At that point, I was at a sharp turn in the middle of the woods, and I knew that when I turned that corner, that was it. The ritual would start. I did not feel a pull forward. I wanted so badly to turn around, but I just went. I just drove. At first, there was no change, but right as I was coming up into the 2nd mile, the temperature seemed to plummet. I checked the paper I wrote the rules on and turned up my heater. Mile 2. I find myself reaching to turn the heater on full blast. It is cold, and that's all. It's just cold. Nothing else seemed to be out of order. Mile 3. I see one person walking along the right side of the road with a backpack. This looked to me like an actual human, though the fact that I was traveling along a desolate back road in the middle of nowhere does strike me as odd. However, this person never looked at my car. He appeared in the rear view mirror and appeared to be playing on his phone. He looked very real and very normal and very unbothered. Besides this, I saw nothing else. Mile 4. This is where got weird for me. I started to really fear the situation for the first time, and as I drove past a small clearing from the trees, I swear I thought I heard a fist hit my window and the sound of someone shouting my name. It was as if it was right outside the window. I have no explanation for this, except for in the case that my imagination was running wild at this point. Either way, I was shaking and involuntarily sped up. I considered turning around, but I just kept driving. Mile 5. Nothing crazy happened during mile 5, actually. It was during mile 5 that I was able to take a breath and calm myself down. Mile 6. Nope. I will never. My headlights shut off a total of 3 times. I slowed down, but did not stop. This road was so curvy, and it was the worst time for my headlights to fuck up. The last time they went off, I actually thought they had burned out. They must have been off for at least a minute straight. I barely saw anything, just the yellow double lines, and I went with that. I almost had to stop when I thought I could see someone standing in the middle of the road, but at the last second, my lights came on, and at that same moment, my radio started blasting an AM channel. This is said to happen, but I don't know if I possibly hit a button on my steering wheel. I forgot I wasn't supposed to turn off the radio, and I turned it off. I wonder if this affected the rest of the trip. Mile 7, nothing happens. I just drive and hear something hit my car, an acorn or something, I assume. Mile 8, nothing happens. But I'm scared at this point, and I have tears in my eyes. The fear is so intense, and I feel as though I am being intently watched. It felt as if someone was right behind my ear, looking at me and waiting for something. I kept waiting to hear someone start screaming. Mile 9. My car stalls. Yep, it happened. The one thing I thought will not happen. Oh baby. I close my eyes as tight as I can, as per instruction of the rules, and I am screaming. I keep trying to start my car, and finally it starts and I take off. I don't know if anything else happened. I just start going, screaming the whole time. I didn't see anything, but I swear I heard laughing at some point. In my memory, I can't pinpoint exactly when it was that I heard the laughing. Mile 10, I'm still freaking out. I'm crying, but I don't see or hear anything. I was pretty much just trying really hard to convince myself this was all just a coincidence and random, and there was actually nothing to be afraid of. Mile 11, I see a red light, but like a literal traffic light. Still, I close my eyes because I'm honestly not sure if this counts. I keep my eyes closed until I can see the red glow behind my eyelids. I stop, and I only stop because I felt like I was supposed to. When I opened my eyes, I felt like I hadn't experienced any fear, like I hadn't heard or seen anything. I felt fine, if not great. It was so strange. I closed my eyes, made my wish, and as it wasn't a physical thing, I immediately turned my phone on and routed myself home. It's been just about 18 hours since, but I'm still waiting to see what happens. So, was it my imagination? Was it all a coincidence? I don't know. Maybe. I'll let you know if my wish comes true. Let me know what you guys thought of that one, and let me know if you want me to look into if he made any updates on this. Anyways, that's it for this one. See you next time.
Remember how I be telling y'all, if you hear somebody knocking on your door or you hear somebody's voice but no one is home, never open the door? Scary story time. And this story this time is actually not my dad's story, it's my friend's story. She's also Haitian, and she wanted to share her story with you guys. So when her family was supposed to come to this country, coming from Haiti, they kept it a secret. And this is actually a common thing, because even with me too, when I was coming, it was an absolute secret. Nobody knew but me, my dad, and my grandma, and my uncle. And my uncle was a pastor. Well, is a pastor. But the reason for that is people are jealous, and people will do anything to stop you from where you need to be. When they see you prospering and it's not them, I've seen it happen so many times in Haiti. Anyway, so that was the case for her and her family. At the time, it was her and her brother. And when I tell y'all, it was an absolute secret. Nobody knew they were coming to America but the people living in their house. It was literally top secret, which is why it was shocking to her mom when she got a phone call from a church member. Mind y'all, they weren't even that close. Like, that church member, it's not like they were like best friends. It was just somebody they went to church with, and she actually lived very far too. Now, there was this lady that they knew, that everybody knew was a lugau, but it wasn't their business, you feel me? Like, that's the lady's problem. That's her, she do her. Anyway, so the mom gets a phone call from the church member, and the church member tells her mom, I had a dream, and I know that you guys are leaving. You guys are going to America, but so-and-so, the lady that's a lugau, does not like that. And she has something planned for y'all so that it does not happen. Mind y'all, they don't even know how the lugau lady found out that they're leaving, but I mean, you know, lugau. The church member tells her from her dream that she was told to tell her mom these instructions. First one is, of course, make sure that nobody else finds out. The second one was there was this uniform they used to wear to church for Saturday services. She tells them to keep that uniform and all of their clothes that they're going to wear until the day that they leave, and make sure that nobody touches those clothes. And the last thing that she told her to do was that the car that was supposed to transport them to the airport, change it. Absolutely change it. So they did all of that. They prayed, they followed directions and stuff like that, and everything worked out well. They got here thinking it was over, but woo, was it far from over.
This woman has the scariest stories on TikTok. If you're new here, hi. I usually talk about pretty scary stuff, and I stumbled across this woman's page a couple of days ago, and since then, I have not stopped thinking about this particular story. And when I tell y'all that this story scared me so bad that it has not left my mind. I'm specifically talking about this woman's video. Now, this woman was an on-call healthcare professional in the Appalachian Mountains. If that doesn't already give you chills, I don't know what will. Now, some of her clients do not have running water or electricity, so they would send time card slips by mail up to the clients, and when they would receive them is when they would have their appointment. Upon arriving at the specific client's house, who this story is about, she was met by a swarm of flies. Now, this part in the story, I had no idea what kind of story this was going to be. I did not know if it was going to be like a body. I did not know if it was going to be like a medical thing. I did not know. She says that this particular client did not have any furniture in the home, so she was met with a damp smell and newspapers spread all over this floor. The client gestures for her to sit down, and she does, not wanting to embarrass this client, and there are just flies everywhere. And this is a detail that has not left my mind. As she's putting in the notes on her laptop, anytime she would move her hand, she would hit a fly. That is how many flies were in this home. And these flies, in particular, were trying to get into her eye. And you know where this is going. The fly got so close to her eye that she actually caught one in her eyelid. Obviously, her eye started watering, but this fly would not come out of her eye. And finally, she's able to get the body of the fly out of her eye, but she can still feel something in her eye. But she continues on. She continues taking her notes. She's asking the client questions, and had been noticing that whenever she would ask this client a question, who lived alone, they would respond back in plural. So, do you take medications? Yes, we take medications. We live here. Plural. And at one point, she asks this client to clarify, and they say, we live here. So after this visit is concluded, she gets in her car, she goes home. Once she gets home, she makes an appointment with her optometrist to get whatever is left out of her eye because she can feel that there's something still in there. Now, she goes to leave, flies covering the screen door. She's like, what the heck is going on? So she brushes them off, gets in her car, turns the car on, goes to the optometrist, and they are able to remove a fly's wing and a fly's leg. Gets in her car, starts the car, and flies. Buzz through the vents. And it's at this point where she's understanding what this client was meaning when they would say, we live here, we take medications, we do this. And immediately goes to her church, because if you don't know what I'm picking up and putting down, this was a demonic entity. Now, in retrospect, yes, that makes a lot of sense, because the flies, the smell, the we. He says, cast it out. It is not welcome to be in your home. So she does just that. And mind you, the flies have not left her home. She casts this thing out.
She's laying in bed waiting for her husband to come up to bed when she sees something sitting on her ceiling. And this is the part that gave me chills, okay? I've been thinking about it for almost a week. She says that this thing was missing a leg. And she says that it started to turn its head. And she knows this because she could see its hair fall to look at her when it was changing its position. And it begins to crawl across her ceiling, not breaking eye contact with her. Crawled into her closet. She never saw it again. And here's the kicker. Wakes up the next morning, goes downstairs, opens up her front door, and all of the flies that were infesting the screen door were now dead. And all I gotta say is this. That woman says something very important in that video, and it is throughout the entirety of it. She says that when you talk about things like this, it manifests. And I couldn't agree more. Right after I heard this video, I am walking out the front door and I hear something. And mind you, I've been doing really, really good, okay? I have not heard a single peep. I have not heard a single scratch. I have not heard anything until I heard this video. So take that as you will. But anyways, that's going to do it for me. Stay tuned for more ghost stories.
Can we show them the older homestead?
Yeah, let's go. As you know.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Was that you?
Yeah, that's on either side.
They went to both.
Yeah.
Scary story time while I make slime. Human sacrifice. Get your money's worth and let this little tiny bit drain. This story is not my story. It was sent in by a girl named Mackenzie. I don't know if the story time is true or not, y'all, but it had me on my tippy toes. Mackenzie is 25 years old, and she was ready to settle down and start a family, and she felt like American men weren't going to do that for her. So homegirl switched up her type, and she only started dating foreign men. So she got on all these dating websites to find foreign men, and she finally found one, and we're going to call him K. K was a Haitian man. His profile said he stood 6 foot tall, and he had money. So Mackenzie and Kay, they automatically hit it off. Like, hit it right off the bat. They start talking, texting 24/7. They start sending money to each other. And it's only been 3 months, might I add. Now, keep in mind, y'all, Kay lives in Haiti. So this is real long distance. It's been 3 months, y'all, and Kay, he wants some Mackenzie. He texted Mackenzie and he's like, look, I want to see you. You should come to Haiti. I'll pay for your plane. I'll pay for your hotel. I'll pay for everything. Now, Mackenzie, she's a little skeptical, and she's like, look, I want to see you, but I'm not going to Haiti. How about you come to America, and I'll pay for your plane ticket plus your hotel? He ends up agreeing to this. Kay ends up coming to America. They have a grand time. They do grown folks business. And then Kay goes back to Haiti, and, you know, they get to know each other more. It's been It's been a year and 3 months, and Mackenzie and freaking Kay, they're unbreakable. Couple goals, or so we think. Now, y'all, Kay proposes to Mackenzie. She's happy, she's ecstatic, but Kay keeps stressing her. He's like, look, you know, we're getting married soon, and I want you to have a traditional Haitian wedding. She's still a little weary about traveling all the way to freaking Haiti, but reluctantly, she ends up agreeing. 2 weeks before her wedding day, she's supposed to be flying to Haiti. Now, she had a deal with Kay. He was going to get her a hotel room because she did not want to sleep in his parents' house. She don't know them. Now, he promises her that she's not going to sleep in his parents' house and he'll get her a hotel room. 2 weeks before her wedding day, she travels her butt out to Haiti. While she's on the plane, she's realizing how little she knows about her soon-to-be in-laws and her family, her soon-to-be family. All she knows is that he has 3 sisters and his mom and dad are still together and they love each other. That's basically it. My phone very much died, but back into the story. Now, she quickly realizes that she is not going to be getting a hotel of her own. They're going straight to his parents' house. They drive 5 hours away from the city. Now, when she arrived at his parents' house, she felt like she was being watched. But she brushes it off as, you know, maybe I'm just homesick. She meets the family, but she feels like something was a little off. She just couldn't put her finger on it. They never really spoke English around her unless they were directly talking to her. Kay also promised her that he would take her back to the city on the 3rd day. Now, y'all, it's the 2nd night. She starts to hear whispers Not only does she feel like she's being watched, but now she's hearing whispers. She wakes up the next day, which is the third day, the day that she's supposed to be going back to the city, and she feels terrible. She said it felt like her head was going to explode. She was throwing up. She was doing everything. Now, the only thing she ate the night before was the mother's cooking, but she's not putting two and two together yet. She's only getting worse as the days are going on, but she's eating everything that the mother is preparing for her. On the 7th day of her being in that house, she finally musters up the courage to get up and do some exploring. When she finds weird statues and figures all around the house, and she automatically knows that is what's watching me. Those are the whispers she's hearing at night. So remember when I said they never really spoke English around her unless they were directly talking to her? They were not aware that she was up because of how sick she had been, and she was kind of outside by the kitchen window. They're talking in English. She overhears a conversation with her mother-in-law and her significant other. The mother-in-law says to Kay she should have been unconscious by now. Why hasn't the sickness gotten to her? Have you secretly gave her medicine? And Kay's like, no, like I want this feast to happen too. When she hears this, she thinks they're talking about eating her. She stops eating the food that the mom gives her. She acts like she's eating it, but she doesn't. She gets well soon, but she still acts like she's sick. Now, she believed that they were talking about eating her, but they were not. They were talking about the feast that comes after the ritual, which was her. She finds that out later though. But time jump. He has came up with her plan. The plan is to steal the car keys and drive back to the city. That's exactly what she does. She finds the keys one night. She drives back to the city, still sick though, books herself a flight and gets home. She's on the next flight home. Kay is furious. He's blowing up her phone. And at this point, she's about to block this man, but she asked him, what do you mean by you're ready for this feast too? Y'all, what were y'all planning to do? Eat me? And he was like, no, we were planning to sacrifice you to what we believed in, then have a feast after that. After hearing this, she hangs up on him, blocks him on everything, moved, and safe to say, she's not going back to Haiti for a long time.
A real true crime case of a killer clown. On the morning of May 26, 1990, Marlene Morin had a visitor at her door. When she opened her door, standing in front of her was a clown holding flowers and balloons. Before Marlene even knew what was happening, the clown took out a revolver and shot her in the face. Since it's now October, you guys have been asking me to cover the most terrifying true crime cases I know, and truly, what is scarier than a real killer clown? Marlene's son and some of his friends were over for breakfast, and they could see everything that happened. They saw the clown just turn around and walk slowly, silently back to the car that they came in, get in the car, and just drive away like nothing happened. Marlene was rushed to the hospital, but sadly passed away 2 days later from her injuries. When a woman is killed, the first person that investigators look at is the husband. Marlene and Mike Warren owned multiple properties and businesses together, but they were also having severe marital problems. Marlene suspected that her husband Mike had been having an affair, and that she was even afraid for her life. She told multiple people before she passed away that if something happened to her, her husband was the one that did it. But her husband had an airtight alibi. It could not have been him that came to her house dressed like a clown and had shot her. Could he have hired someone? And what about the woman that he was having this rumored affair with? That woman was Sheila Keene. Sheila was also married actually to a member of the KKK. And it was pretty well-known knowledge that Sheila and Michael were having an affair, that they were sleeping together, although they always denied it. They claimed that they were just friends. But even Sheila's own neighbors thought that Michael was her husband instead of her actual KKK husband because of how often Michael was over at her house. But just because two people may or may not be having an affair is not enough to charge someone with murder. Well, luckily, the investigators started to gather a lot of convincing evidence. They were able to track down the costume shop where the clown costume had been purchased. The owners of the costume shop said that 2 days before Marlene was killed, a woman with dark brown hair and big brown eyes came after closing to the shop, frantically saying that she needed to get in because she needed to get a clown costume. This would be, typical behavior if it was the day before Halloween, but this was in the middle of spring. And the owners of that costume shop were able to identify Sheila as that woman from a photo lineup. And the same description of the same woman, long brown hair, big brown eyes, was seen at the Publix grocery store right near Marlene's house the day that she passed away, purchasing those flowers and balloons that the clown was holding. 4 days after Marlene was killed, the same car that the clown was seen driving was found abandoned in a parking lot 8 miles away. In the backseat of the car was a Publix grocery store bag, so things are lining up, and inside of the bag were orange wig fibers, likely from the orange clown wig. And that same car had actually been reported stolen. It was from a used car shop that Marlene's husband Michael was the owner of, so things are not looking good. And speaking of Marlene's husband Michael, investigators do not trust this man. They believe that Michael and his mistress Sheila were the ones that killed Marlene, so they start investigating every single aspect of Michael's life. They start investigating his businesses. Remember, him and Marlene owned a lot of businesses together, and they actually found out that Michael had been committing a lot of fraud through his businesses. They actually charged him with 43 counts of fraud and racketeering, and he went to prison for 3 years because of this. After his release, him and Sheila both just kind of disappeared. They both left the area and no one knew where they went. And that's all that the investigators had for a really, really long time. This case went unsolved for years and years. Luckily, the investigators could not let this case go. Even independent journalists were unable to let this case go. They demanded that Marlene's case did not go unsolved, and what they were able to find next was shocking. Turns out, 12 years after Marlene was killed, her husband Michael married Sheila in a secret wedding. Now remember, Michael always denied having an affair with Sheila. Sheila, who is the prime suspect in his wife's murder. He married the prime suspect in his wife's murder 12 years later in a secret wedding. It's like super suspicious. It had been years since Marlene had been killed, and investigators and independent journalists were able to work together and finally track down Michael and Sheila. Turns out, after being married in secret for a little bit, the two of them actually moved states together. They opened a restaurant together. Sheila had dyed her hair suspiciously the same color as Marlene's hair, looking like her husband's dead wife, kind of weird. Sheila was also going by a new name, and everyone that knew Sheila and Michael in this new area that went to their restaurant all the time had no idea that the two of them had ever been married before. They did not know that Michael had a dead wife. They knew nothing about any of this. This is when we found out that the investigators were actually holding on to a really, really big piece of evidence. They had DNA that was left in that car that the clown had drove that was abandoned in that parking lot. But DNA testing was not the same in the 90s that it was now. But the investigators kept onto it just in case DNA testing ever got better. So they start retesting all of their old DNA, and that's when they finally linked Sheila's DNA to the DNA that they found in the car. It had been 27 years since Marlene had been killed, and Sheila was finally arrested for murdering her on September 26, 2017. And I bet for those nearly 3 decades, Sheila believed that she had gone away with it. They actually found a photo that was taken years after Marlene was killed of Sheila at a Halloween party, and guess what she dressed up as? She dressed up as a clown. Tell me that's not the sickest, most evil thing you've ever heard of. And I bet in her mind, she thought it was funny, dressing up like a clown for Halloween a few years after killing Marlene while dressed up as a clown. Originally, the prosecution was going for the death penalty in the trial of Sheila Keene, but after the trial was postponed so many times during like the 2020 pandemic, they ended up offering her a plea deal, and sadly she did take the plea deal, and it was if she pled guilty to killing Marlene that they would only give her 12 years in prison, and she's expected to be released next year in 2025. Apparently, there was never enough evidence to charge Michael Warren in the murder of his wife. As of right now, only Sheila has ever been charged, which really upsets me because I feel like we had enough evidence to charge Sheila. So if we were going to offer her a plea deal, it would have been to incriminate Michael. But definitely let me know your thoughts on that. I doubt I'm not the only person that also believes that Michael is guilty, and this was a conspiracy that he came up with his mistress Sheila to kill his wife. And I bet that that's going to be frustrating for a lot of you that, like me, believe that Michael Warren, as of right now, has gone away with the murder of his wife. And honestly, Sheila got away with only kind of a slap on the wrist. You know, she got to live freely for 27 years before being arrested and then was sentenced to only 12 years. So definitely let me know all your thoughts in the comments while you guys are there. Please let me know what case you want to see me cover next. Until then, I love you guys so much, and I will see you guys tomorrow with the next October themed case.
What the fuck was that? Bro!
What's going on around you?
I don't know. I'm frozen. I am frozen.
Did the window
Sean.
break?
Spooky story time. A follower named Vincent sent me this story and we're going to call it My Grandma Regina. This is going to be a 2-part series, so stay tuned. Vincent says that in 1989, he was about 6 years old and he lived in a home with his mom, his 5 siblings, his grandma Regina, and his dad was kind of in and out due to alcoholism, so he wasn't really around too much. Vincent is the youngest of the 5 siblings, so he was very close to his grandma, and his grandma did have to do dialysis, so he would walk her to the bus whenever she had her appointments, and when she was gone, he would sit in front of the bay window just waiting for her to come home. One particular day, she did not come home. He would ask his mom, like, hey, where's grandma? And his mom always came up with excuses, but because he was so young, he didn't fully understand. And days turned into weeks. He asked his mom, but she never wanted to tell him that she had passed because she didn't want to put him through the hurt. Vincent says that after her passing, they started noticing paranormal activity going on in the house. He says that it began very subtle, cabinets and drawers in the kitchen opening and closing, and then things started to get more odd. He says that at night, they could clearly hear someone walking around their house. They would go outside and check, and of course, there would be nobody there. And he says that as the days went on, things got more and more drastic. Vincent says that his grandma's cries could be heard throughout the house. And it wasn't like just, oh, I'm crying. It was like a suffering kind of cry and groan. One night, his mom was laying in her bed, relaxing, and she suddenly feels like someone lays right next to her in the bed. And then she suddenly gets paralyzed. She cannot move. At the same time, Vincent's sister heard something in her room, freaked her out so much that she started screaming her head off. Once mom heard that her daughter is screaming her head off, she's somehow able to snap out of this paralysis state, runs towards her daughter's room. Her daughter is running towards her in the hallway, and then suddenly his sister gets violently shoved sideways, kind of like towards the living room. They freak out. Mom is like, all right, we need to get out of here. Let's go look for your dad. They go to the bar, find dad, and he is not in his full mental state, of course. And he says, I will get home when I'm ready to get home. Y'all need to leave. They had nowhere else to go. They were still very shook. So they go back home, but they don't go inside the home. They're kind of like sitting in the bumper of the car, relaxing outside. And then they start to hear cries coming from inside the house. And then suddenly the front door opens and closes as if someone is coming outside. And then they can actually physically hear footsteps walking towards them. Obviously, they're freaking out. They all jump into the car and they drive off. Go to part 2.